We had a face-to-face board meeting in last year in 2022, and we had this strategy discussion along the 3 pillars: ethics and standard, knowledge development, and representation. And we discussed that in the annual meeting, and now in this board meeting that took place in Amman, a wonderful place to have board meetings, by the way, and a wonderful place to meet again. But I will come back to this a little bit later. In our board meeting in Amman 2 weeks ago, I guess, we discussed about implementing all the outcomes of the strategic discussions last year. It's not covering all the outcome because, for example, in the governance discussion, we have, I think, something like 50 recommendations that should be amended in our governance, and we cannot do it all at the same time. And I would like to group this outcome along what I would call an open and agile organization, about a new or amended or improved path to the CMC and other issues that are related to ICMCI with regards to become more mature and to grow, and yeah, some issues I would like to mention. And especially for you, Lydia, I think the open and agile organization, because you're a hub chair, might have some effect, and we already discussed how to set up the new policy about hubs and communities. But let me start with the CMC, the path to CMC. We had some discussion about maybe 1 or 2 mid-level, as we call it, certificates or awards. For the time being, we have an entry level that is ISO, the ISO training, ISO standards training. And we have, at the very end, we have the gold standard, that is the CMC. Different IMCs offer different trainings in between to become a CMC. But in our discussions, we said that we should make the path to the CMC a little bit more clearer to understand, and not having the CMC so far away when you start at the very beginning, especially as a young professional, as a young consultant, not in terms of age, but in terms of professional life. And therefore we said, why don't we add a level? Lydia, you developed the name. I don't know if you're aware of that, but the ICMCI registered consultant was something you proposed in the annual meeting last year. And we have been looking for a name for this mid-level. And
can I clarify? We use it, the name we use is, you're right here, we put registered RMC, registered management consultant.
Yes. Yes.
Registered management consultant. Yeah.
Well, we grabbed that and took it for ICMCI registered management consultant. Maybe we should change that. And that could, it is below the CMC. It is a level that might be for a specific knowledge, like knowledge developed by ICMCI, like management consulting with regards to implementing sustainability or digitalization, mega trends that will come up from time to time. For now, it's digitalization and sustainability, but I'm sure there will come up new mega trends. And these trainings and this register award with regards to this content of this mega trend is something that will or should be developed on a global level. And it doesn't make sense to develop that on an IMC level, because IMC is, the megatrend is a megatrend. It's a global trend. And if all the IMCs develop their own awards and their own trainings with the same focus, actually it's a lot of work that is not needed, and we should share our knowledge and not develop our knowledge for everything ourselves. But I think it might be good to have something like an IMC registered management consulting. That might be the same you said, Lydia, or it's maybe a little bit below that. That might be the improving of the knowledge about the ISO training, like a special deep dive in one of the policies, stakeholder engagement in the restaurant business, or stakeholder engagement for family-owned business, or whatever. So if you start with the whole part at the very beginning, you see the entry level, that is the ISO standard, then you see the IMC registered level, then you see the ICMCI registered level, and then you go to the gold standard, the CMC. That's the background of this new path. It's actually not very new. Many IMCs have something like that, which is part of ICMCI is, I need to go over there, the ISO. There might be some trainings developed, and the ICMCI registered consultant is part of ICMCI job that needs to be done. And even before the CMC could be something that is developed on ICMCI level, the content, the training. The rest is to the IMC, and the rest needs to be set up with in the specific environment of the IMC, with the appropriate language and background and culture and whatever are the needs of the IMCs. And for some of the IMCs, they already use it because they have funding programs where consulting services are funded by government or other organizations for very specific topics. So that would be on this level. Now, if we, as I said, this is either the IMC or the ICMCI, but there could be something coming from outside, like we call it alternative streams. It might be academia, it might be other providers, it might be other associations where we accept specific educations and specific trainings on a specific level. This might be on the very low level, it might be in this registered level, but it might be even right before becoming a CMC. We had a very good discussion yesterday in the PAC, and our Canadian friends, they are developing this reciprocity to other training programs, especially for the academia, because they see a very big market for the CMC, for students who are educated in management consulting. They have an MBA in management consulting. So where do we level this MBA? How do we integrate this education in the path to the CMC? It's not automatically related to the award of the CMC because it's still an award that is given by the IMC. And in many situations, in most situations, that it might be necessary to have a hearing or something else to demonstrate the knowledge and the experience, because the CMC is an award that is related to experience. And if you are a student and you're getting out of the university, there is a lack of experience at this time. So it needs to be quality assured process. But we do have other discussions with the British Institute. Nick, he disappeared on my screen, but he's still here, I guess, with the chartered consultant. That has an effect, might be having an effect to the Australian IMC, because the chartered management consultant is more or less exactly the same like the CMC. And we have a discussion on how can we cooperate with the chartered consultant award, because actually it's not on us. It should be the consultant who wants to decide, do I want to have the chartered or the CMC or both, whatever. So it's level very close to CMC. I'm telling you this because I think, and we will discuss it in our annual meeting, but that will have an effect on the approach, how you do marketing for the CMC and how you set up your training programs as an IMC. And this will take time. So this is what we propose, and this is what we would like to discuss with you. But even if we have the same understanding of what this new path to the CMC means, it will take time to implement that and to make these things happen, because it needs to be communicated to the market and everything around that. And you know better than I how much effort it needs to do so. Do you have any questions to that in terms of understanding the background, and do we have the same understanding, or should I proceed with the next topic? But I would like to have the discussion on this if necessary before we move over to the next topic.
So Robert, in relation to this continuum you have here, where does, so I'm looking at the CMC competence framework, and we've got foundation CMC and profession leader. Now, obviously, we know where CMC fits, it's on the right-hand side, but in relation to your continuum here, where does foundation in the competence framework sit? And how might what you're discussing here evolve into then a competence framework which actually covers everything that you're talking about here?
Thank you very much. I'm sorry to having not addressing this, but of course, this is all based on the competence framework. And as you see, we have yesterday in the discussion with the PSC, we started how can we link, maybe it's not the right wording, how can we set up a scoring system based on the competence framework? And just to give you an idea, it might be in the way that we say the ISO training gives you 10 scoring points, like the ECDS points in on university. And the IMC registered consultant might be 50, which is a little bit more than the foundation level. And the ICMCI registered consultant could be 75% of the competence framework. What does it mean exactly? I don't know for the time being how to set up the scoring system, because this is what the PSC is working on now. But of course, the 100% of the scoring of the competence framework needs to be demonstrated and needs to be achieved on CMC level. That's the background of these digits here. But yeah.
So of your notional 100, if it's 100%, 100 points, whatever, what is the competency? So there's a competency, but there is also what you refer to as experience. So when we're assessing CMC, of course, we're looking at projects that have been undertaken with clients and whether or not those projects have met the needs of clients. What proportion of this 100 is devoted to that practical consulting experience?
This is focused on the competence, these 100. And the experience is the add-on. That doesn't change. It's like it is handled now, and you need to present I don't know how many projects in the hearing, and you need to have your recertification by presenting, or at least demonstrate that you have a number of projects delivered in the last years. So this is related to the competence framework but it is a discussion in progress. We don't have a final result. It is quite complex to make it as easy, understandable, as transparent as possible. And this is not, it is for the discussion. It is not, I would send it out to the consultants, because that might be more confusing of the path than it benefits.
Can I, sorry, up to you, Peter. Do you have another question, Peter?
No, I'm fine. No, fine.
but maybe may I add something? Because Peter, what you addressed with regards to the Australian situation, there is the how to demonstrate quality assurance for management consulting, and that is very strongly related to a code of ethics, for example. And if we decide, or if the IMC decides that the code of ethics is something that is so important that we should have this at the very beginning, it could be placed somewhere here or maybe here. I don't know. It's very close to the 50. And also,
yeah, well, yeah. So I would, in fact, we're looking at how we build a program of training which takes you up to a point where you are then, together with your practical experience, are able then to go for a CMC interview. But what I would see is that the code of ethics, a program around the code of ethics, is actually point one. Before you do anything, my view would be we have a discussion about the code of ethics.
yes.
We have a training, it's not just a discussion, it is a training session about the code of ethics. And then we can roll into, and ISO 27000-217, of course, is insinuated absolutely through the whole of the competence framework. So that's really, really critical. And it's got, it's such a great tool that it informs absolutely every element along that pathway. So that needs to be done early on as well. In fact, even the consultants that are coming forward now to be certified, we insist that they have ISO 2700 before they can be certified.
Yes, but this can be related to a specific industry or a specific size of company to start with. On CMC level, it is independent from the industry, it's independent from the size of the company. But to deal with code of ethics on a very small level of enterprise, for example, it's different. But you need to understand what to do. You need to be able to address it and to discuss it with the business you are delivering your services to. And so this might be very small bites. We often say micro credentials, like
yes.
Code of ethics in a family-owned business, which is not as complex as it is for the oil industry or whatever. Right? A complex international organization does have other challenges with regards to the code of ethics. It's not easier, but it's different from small enterprise. And in many situations, even many big companies have their own code of ethics, and the consultant has his own code of ethics. So they need to be ready to discuss it and to decide how to deal with these situations. That doesn't appear so often in smaller business.
Of course, there is a great deal of difference between organizations who have codes of ethics and organizations that practice them.
Yes. So this is why I totally agree to have this at the beginning, because now it's very prominent and now it's very high ranked in popular opinions. Maybe that changes, but yeah. Lydia, please.
All right, thank you. I'd like to share with you the Singapore story or the Singapore experience, how we came up to have this registered management consultants. In 2016, when I was president, the Singapore government wanted to raise the overall standards of management consulting in Singapore, basically to ensure there's quality and there's competency, because everybody call themselves, I am a consultant, but who are you? You must be certified by a body. So anyway, our process starts like that. They appointed 3 bodies, but before we submit our recommendations to the government, Singapore government, we form a task force a RMC task force with all the senior managers, no, all the senior CMCs to brainstorm. So in short, what did we come up with? We took the CMC, which is the gold standard. We took the competency framework. We took it all almost in totality. All right. Then, and you say, what's the difference between RMC and a CMC? We took the standards. We took everything from CMC. Then we say the difference between a RMC and a CMC is that the RMC, the registered consultant, only need 1,000 consulting hours experience, whereas the CMC needs 3,600 hours. In other words, 1,200 hours for 3 consecutive years. So in that case, we are building a junior CMC because it's the same standard, except the consulting hours are different. All right. So when they acquire the 1,000 hours, which are mainly the young ones, and not only the young ones, even the older consultants in the marketplace who actually grew up through trial and error, put it this way. So now they have a system, all right? So they came to us, we give them 3 days training. After that, they have to sit for an exam. Some fail, but they can resit again. And then they go through an interview process by 2 assessors, all right? Then the 2 assessors will assess whether they qualify for registered management consultant. Once they qualify, then they become a registered management consultant. Now, that's where our low-lying fruits are for CMC, because it's based on CMC competency framework. So we have been trying very hard. A lot of management consultants, unfortunately, got the 1,000 hours because then we had, in fact, our business just went through the roof because everybody wants to be RMC. Why? Because the government recognized the RMC, and any organization that you go to, mainly, I would say, small, medium enterprise. And there's a lot of business in small, medium enterprise, you know. So they will get 70% funding from the government in different disciplines: digitalization, service excellence, business excellence, finance, IT, anything you, or HR, all areas. The government ensures, our government ensures that it's all covering all the different disciplines, all right? So the RMC are actually our low-lying fruits because their competency is there, except they need to acquire 3,600 hours. Unfortunately, a lot of people still struggle, but we are telling them, look here, if you do RMC, you have a pathway to become a CMC. Now you're RMC, you're only recognized by the local Singapore government. But if you get your CMC, your qualification is portable worldwide. You're recognized by 50 countries. All right. They are actually very excited, but a lot of them are still struggling with the 3,600 hours. I believe, in fact, I talked to Simon Ashland before about this 3,600 hours. I believe some IMC do not implement the 3,600 hours at all. You know, they have kind of relaxed it a bit. Otherwise, it's too stringent. Very few can get in. So today we are still, I would say, still a challenge for us. We are getting CMC, but not the kind of numbers that we want. All right. So for the last few years, I was president for 6 years of IMC. I went back to the government and again say, look here, you have to recognize CMC. If they have CMC, you must get funding, you know, because they are more, they have more experience and all that. But the government is always very cautious, and it has always been a challenge, but we have never given up. We are still trying. It's actually every time we have to educate them. Our main challenge is that they keep changing the people behind those chairs. And once they change, we start our stories all over again. And it's like continuous education, but we're still trying. We are saying, look here, you recognize registered management consultant, which is 1,000 consulting hours. Why can't you recognize CMC with 3,600 hours? It's even gold standards, international standards, global standards. This is what we are telling them. So I think for RMC to move to CMC is not difficult. The only stumbling block is the hours.
Yeah.
So
but
I think
we do have, in between, we have this level, the ICMCI registered management consultant, to make it maybe a little bit easier.
Yeah, but how many hours?
That is related to a specific knowledge, and it should have some international background. But the main topic is how to protect the gold standard. It's not competing the gold standard, it's to protect the gold standard. We need to be sure that reciprocity in terms of quality assurance is guaranteed. And that's both. We want to make it easier and more attractive to become a CMC, but at the same time, we want to protect the gold standard. That's the
I think it's not in competition. In fact, it's complementary, I find.
Yes.
It's really helping the registered management consultant, giving them a pathway to go global,
Yes.
to go to gold standard, because they don't have to change very much, because the competency framework is exactly the same. The only criteria is the consulting hours.
Yeah. Okay. We need to move on with our with my presentation, but thank you very much. If there's not a question related to the basic understanding, or that we have the same understanding, I would like to move on with the next topic. And as I said, we call that open and agile, ICMCI. We want to make ICMCI more flexible, and we want to make ICMCI more open. And we have 3 different levels to do. So the closest level are the hubs. We do have 4 hubs now. They are fitted to the regional needs, and that is, it's an ICMCI entity. The next level, a little bit outside, more outside of ICMCI, are the communities. We do have kind of communities. In the last years, we established the Future of Consulting community, for example. And that is something to be open for new developments in management consulting, to address international, global topics in management consulting. Always with regards, how can the IMCs benefit from that? It's not something that is some ICMCI idea. We need to discuss about digitalization, for example. If we want to discuss about digitalization, we always need to understand how can the IMCs benefit, in what way, and are IMCs supporting that? Is it something as we do it on global level, ICMCI is doing that, and the IMCs don't even know that this exists, then it's the wrong way. And a little bit more away, even from communities, there is what we call the observer status. We want to connect different stakeholders that are not necessarily management consultants or management consulting organization to ICMCI. And maybe in some specific situations, out of that, we might win new members in countries where we don't are present now with members of ICMCI. It could be the entry level for potential new members. Let me bring in some ideas about how it could work specifically with the hubs. The main thing is that we are talking about business plans for hubs, because business plans for hubs, they would generate a common understanding of all IMCs in this hub. What are our goals for the next, let me say, 3 or 5 years? It's up to the hubs to set the business plan up for 3 or 4 or 5 or maybe 6 or 2 years. I don't know. It's something that is up to the hub. I don't think it makes sense to make it much longer than 5 years because everything is so changing so quick. I think 5 years, it's more or less the longest period. In this business plan, it should be addressed, how can our IMCs benefit? It should be addressed, what are the required structures within the hub? And what are the required resources the hub needs to achieve these goals? For example, in Europe, we have the situation that we have a European political level. This level exists in all parts of the world, but to talk to European political level, the European Union guys, you need to be a representative of the profession, and you need to travel, and you need to set up strategy papers, white papers, and so on and so forth. That is different from other hubs where there are also political level, but it's not so important to be present like it is important in Europe. Maybe this is not something we want to formalize as ICMCI. All we want to formalize is I think we all need a sort of a business plan, and everybody should agree on that and then go on. It's not that we can run all hubs, because this is why we have the hubs. ICMCI and global level, we don't understand the different needs on different geographical regions. The same is for communities. Communities as well as hubs should develop this business plan, and they have the same questions. What are the required structures? What are the resources? And how are the resources funded? By the way, of course, that's something that needs to be addressed. ICMCI cannot fund everything all communities and all hubs are asking for. Then we need different sources to fund that. But communities are not bounded to regions. It could be like women in management consulting. It could be young management consultants. It could be a specific topic, like I said, sustainability or digitalization or whatever. But what it needs to be something that IMCs are supporting. So that these business plan, they need to name specific IMCs. Yes, we are supporting this idea. If not other IMCs, of course, but let me say maybe 5 IMCs should support this community. If we don't find even one IMC that is supporting this idea, the idea might still be great, but it's not what we want to invest resources in if the IMCs don't benefit from that. And the third way how to connect with other stakeholders is the observer status. It's important to understand that observers are not members. A member is a member. A member has, they have rights like voting rights. They can be part of a committee in the PSC or in other committees. They can attend the annual meeting. Observer can attend the conference, the annual conference. Observer can participate in community meetings, for example. Observers could be affiliate organizations that are close to management consulting. It might be client organizations, which would be, my understanding, very important. Because it's important for us that clients understand how management consulting services are delivered. And so why don't we connect with client organizations? It might be associations for IT, project management, accountants. They all have skills and competences partly related to management consulting. And I think it would help all to connect a little bit more closer and share ideas about common problems and common developments. And we want to charge a small annual fee just to demonstrate. It's like maybe it's €100, maybe it's 500. We didn't agree on the price, but it shouldn't be for free, and it shouldn't be too expensive. And they get a certificate that they are observer. It's like we are in the United Nations. ICMCI has a status in the United Nations, and that gives us trust, and it gives us a link to the United Nations. So that is all about this open and agile approach, and how can we link better in ICMCI to consultants, but also outside of ICMCI with stakeholders in the management consulting industry. Do you have specific questions to that?
As far as Singapore is concerned, I wanted to say exactly that stakeholders, we like to collaborate with other professional body. And by collaborating with other professional body, we give one another certain benefits. You know, like for instance, their members can attend our courses at a special rate, or we can enjoy the benefits which they extend to their members. So we believe in collaboration and alliances, and we have been doing that as much as we can. That is not actually what you term here as observer, because they don't pay us a fee and we don't pay them a fee. So it's more like collaboration on the mutual interest, mutual benefit. It's a win-win situation.
Yes, I think that it might be a little bit different on IMC level, because on global level, this networking that takes place on a very local environment, it doesn't happen really. We don't have network meetings, or so it's a little bit more official. This is why we have this observer status. But basically, it's the same. It's, I think, to connect with other stakeholders in the profession. It's part of our job. Okay, as I said, we will discuss that in our annual meeting and discuss how can IMCs benefit from that, and what do we need from the IMCs, because the IMCs maybe have specific ideas whom we should go in touch with, but on regional level and on local level, it's not on ICMCI. We will not connect with a national development bank, for example. It doesn't make sense. We do connect with European bank, the EBRD. We do connect with United Nations. We will connect with the World Bank, for example, with global organizations, global client organizations. But we cannot connect with any organization in the world in any part of the world, and it doesn't make sense. We cannot. We don't have common interests on regional level. If you don't have any specific questions about that, I would like to jump to the other outcomes. First, yes, we mentioned a couple of times the commercial development. Commercial, it's not in for-profit development. Commercial means we do have obligations, we have some sort of a contract. They are small, but there are some amounts of money that need to be transferred. So it's not our daily business. It's something that develops, and that is something that is in a stage where we should think about how to set up this properly, not to run in big problems that might be very commercial big problems. And we are discussing how it's not that we want to set up a legal entity for ICMCI to do these activities, because we are far away from having an appropriate size to do so. It is some money, but it's not enough money to think about setting up a legal entity somewhere in the world. One big project is the UNIDO project, and the workshop with UNIDO to proceed is taking place, I think, by the end of April. And it is it might be a door opener, and we are quite positive that we will have a wonderful relation with UNIDO in the coming years and collaborate in different parts of the world to educate management consultants who are delivering their services in the environment of industrial development. And they need management consultants for that. And they need trained management consultants that are aware of what is management consulting and how to become, at the end of the day, a CMC. They say specifically, UNIDO, they don't want to educate the CMC and award the CMC, but they want to have an award below that. The UNIDO consultant for a specific country, we start in Ghana now, in Ghana. And maybe we, at some point, they establish an institute in Ghana, and we win a new member. That's the background. We do have very interesting activities from Global Institute. They deliver trainings, they deliver with regards to the ISO. They're not in countries where IMCs are present, but in other parts of the world. And unfortunately, there is enough room for them. And they also start to collaborate with organizations in countries where we do not have a member, like I think in Saudi Arabia. They want to educate management consultants, and they need our competences, our know-how, what is good management consulting about, and they are asking for how can you support us when we do the training for management consultants in a specific area. And that is sometimes related to money, but it's always related to some obligations, what we need to provide, and how do we deal with the competence framework when we provide that? How do we deal with the intellectual property issues, and so on and so forth? So this is something we are starting to discuss, and we are starting to establish a structure to make it as professional as necessary and as professional as possible. With that along, we are starting to establish a risk management. Surprisingly, the word risk management is directly in the face of Nick, because he's the owner of this project. Because we need to be aware of possible risks as a global organization. You never know what happens, and now we are establishing the risk management system, including a sustainable approach to maintain this risk management system. It's not something that once it's established, we close the project. It is something that needs to be as sustainable as possible. And all our activities need to be benchmarked with our risk management system. Something that might look like not very important, but I think it might have an effect outside, is that we want to rename some of the committees. Now the QAC, the Quality Assurance Committee, we want to focus that on the quality assurance of the institute. So we want to rename it to Institute Quality Assurance. We have another committee that is called Membership Committee, I guess. And we said that doesn't say too much. And the way the Membership Committee has developed in the last year, it's more in terms of controlling and let me say, not punish, but it's not a very sympathetic approach. We want to help committees in their development. We want to help our members. I'm sorry. We want to help our members to develop, to grow. We want to win more members. So member acquisition, and the name of the committee should be Member Acquisition and Development Committee. And last but not least, the PSC will be renamed in Standards Education, Learning and Development Committee, PDST. So it's addressing specifically the education and learning part, which always has been done by PSC. PSC is the big committee that is doing everything around the CMC, the competence framework, but includes the ISO standard, the ISO training, and so on and so forth. So we want to have that in the name. And last but not least, I think you have read about the establishment of the ISO committee. It's a technical committee, ISO TC 342. That is the Chinese initiative following the ISO standard committee that has been closed after publishing the ISO standard. And this voting is not very surprisingly supporting this idea of China and establishing the ISO committee. It is established formally. Now the secretariat that is also in China needs to start with their activities and call for a first meeting. I don't know specifically when this will be held, but I would guess that should be somewhere in fall, because before summer, I think that would be too short notice. And I hope some of you are connected with the national standard body, some not, but we will keep you updated anyway and find a way how to interact with ICMCI members to bring in our ideas and our strategy in this committee. Do you have any questions to these issues? Anything?
Is there a board member responsible for each of these committees? A board member of ICMCI?
For the IC committee?
So you've got these committees. Is there a board member that is?
We have an affiliate
of ICMCI part of these committees.
Yes, it's PSC. PSC is Ellen. The member acquisition, it is Ruggiero, together with Brenda.
Norma.
Yes. Sorry, Norma. And QSC, it's Nick. No, yes?
Correct.
Sorry for mixing up that, but yeah.
Thank you.
Can I ask?
Treasurer, of course, is Tamara for the Finance Committee.
Yeah.
Can I ask the establishment of the technical committee? One, ISO TC 342, is it something, just an overview, is it something very different or similar or another version of ISO 20700? What's the difference? What are we trying to do?
Well, the Chinese Institute, they have listed, I don't know how many goals maybe, but I would say 2 main goals. The overall is that they say they want to have a better understanding on client side what management consulting is about and what can clients expect from management consultants. This is something everybody would support, because that's quite important, and that is something which would be good for the industry. But they also say that to do so, they want to have a more specific definition of management consulting services, like management consulting in marketing or finance or logistic, whatever. We haven't discussed it now, so maybe it's a misunderstanding, but in my understanding, as I read that, and I said that to Jack Yao, who is the person who is in charge of this project, and I had a couple of calls with him. In my understanding, I don't think it's possible to set up specific fields of management consulting which have different standards on how to deliver these specific management consulting services, because this is changing, and the way management consulting services that are delivered 2 years ago, 5 years, or 20 years ago, it's totally different from the way how they are delivered today. And so that is something we need to discuss on. And just because the Chinese Institute, the Chinese standardization body, listed that as something they want to achieve, it's not that everybody agrees, because they agree to set up the technical committee. It's everybody agrees to discuss about that. And as I know, the national bodies, I don't think that will be realistic to achieve that, but we need to find an alternative to that. And the alternative is how can we demonstrate specific competences or specific roles of management consulting. It's that is open for discussion. And this is further to the ISO standard, and I would say it's not with regards of certification of the ISO standard for the time being. It might something that will be discussed in this committee too.
So China is the driver. China is chairing this task force.
It's not chairing, it's running the secretariat.
Oh, running the secretariat, but is under ICMCI.
No, ICMCI has not a formal role in this committee. We will become a member, an observing member.
Oh.
We applied for that already, but we don't have voting rights as ICMCI. Voting rights in the ISO committees are only with the permanent members, which are the national body, the national standardization bodies.
I see. So does it mean that when it's finally formalized, is it exclusively for China, or
No.
are they intending to go beyond China?
Of course. No. It is a Chinese initiative, but it is an ISO committee.
Oh.
So it's under the governance of ISO. They need to follow the ISO regulations.
I see.
It's not that they did in China, they set up specific standards as a specific 20,700 standards, but that's Chinese. It's not an ISO standard.
Oh, okay. Got you. Thank you.
So ISO 2700 is going to be reviewed, though, in my understanding. Yes.
We recently had the first reviewing process that took place last year. The next will take place in another 5 years, so a little bit more than 4 years from now. And it might be an outcome of this new committee to propose some changes to the ISO standard. Yeah.
Was there any adjustments as a result of last year's committee?
No.
Review? Nothing.
No, nothing. It was agreed as it is, and there is no specific need. There are some discussions about, is it possible to have a certification, because specifically some Asian countries and African countries ask for certification. There are some questions about how can we make this a little bit more easier to understand in terms of the 12 policies and the 3 phases. That's more or less a wording and an editing part. There are some discussions about, is there something that we have in the in the annex. We have, I don't know, something like 10 annex in the standard about an example for a code of ethics or an example of management of resources or so forth. What are potential stakeholders, for example? We maybe discuss to take one or two or some of these annexes into the standard, because an annex is not part of the standard, and the standard is a standard, and the standard can have as many annexes it wants, but it's not part of the standard. But
So
these
with the
are the
checklist-
discussions that may be.
So with the checklist, which is an ICMCI or ICMCI.
The checklist is an ICMCI IP. It's our checklist. We can change the checklist whenever we want. It's specifically Nick, Husayma, and me who set up this checklist, and we know there is something that might be improved, but it's on us. That's not part of it.
That was leading my question then. What is was going to be, is there a review plan for the checklist?
Yes. There are some plans specifically with regards how can we amend the checklist to the needs of management of sustainability, for example, because we don't address that in the checklist. But yeah, we need resources, and that is done in the PSC, and the PSC has a lot of work to do, and it's yeah, step by step, but
yep.
We are aware.
Thank you.
Actually, if I may add, Robert, the PSC already started. They have a task force dedicated for that. And we might, by the end of the year, have the new updated ISO 20700 checklist content.
Good. Good. Okay, now the hour. It's at the hour. Let me add some dates in your diary. First is the International Consultancy Day, June 1st. It's online. We will have 2 sessions, and we will inform you as soon as possible, as soon as we have the final agenda about the details. But June 1st is, well, it's coming up in a couple of weeks, so please reserve that. Second, we have the annual meeting of delegates between I'm not quite sure. I think we agreed on October 11, Rima?
Correct. It is on October 11.
11th, not
12th. Yeah, 12th is the conference. 12th and 13th is the conference and the Constantines.
Yeah. And the topic we want to discuss with the IMCs and to work on with the IMCs is going to be very interactive. What I presented to you now, to discuss how can IMCs benefit from that, how can they implement it, what does it mean for the IMCs, the new path to CMC, the open and agile ICMCI approach. We will have resolutions, most probably, but we won't have elections. For some reason, they don't take place in this year. And the conference, which will take place on October 12th and 13th, it will take place also in Amman, and the topic will be artificial intelligence synergy, exploring new frontiers in management consulting. This is maybe still a working title, but it's where we are going to, and this is what we want to discuss in the conference. So please check your diary between October 11th and October 13th. I'm happy to see you in Amman.
Will it be live streamed?
Most probably we will not have a live stream, maybe a live stream, but not the interactive part, because that is very, it's hard for the conference because we will have keynote speakers and they won't present twice a day. Because if we want to have the benefit, we would need if we would need to have different sessions for the different time zones as we had in the last years. And the same for the annual meeting. We will have one annual meeting, and all these discussions in working groups, breakout sessions are only possible if we have live meetings.
But what about recording, which can be made available to those of us that may not be able to attend?
Yes. Yes.
That would apply for the conference. For the annual meeting, it might apply for the first day, but for the resolutions and voting part, that would need to be within the room itself only.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for listening. And see you soon. The latest on June 1st.
See you at the Asia Pacific Hub meeting on 5th of May.
Yeah. Very good. Okay, so thank you very much, and have a nice whatever day, night, sleep.